This is Truth Be Told.
That not only are there reptilians here,
new evidence of UFO fleets.
We were close to nuclear war.
To help you transform so that you can live your highest truth.
We're not being told just because we're not ready for it.
Radio stations of frequency, vibrational.
I was a homicide detective with LAPD.
UFOs increase, visitations. How can we tell about the future with astrology, especially in the new year of 2024? Welcome, cosmic enthusiast. We have astrologer Kyle Thomas and his predictions for 2024. Today we're going to dive deep into the cosmic currents with none other than the brilliant astrologer Kyle Thomas. He's going to unravel the celestial mysteries that await us in 2024. With his keen insights and cosmic wisdom, he's ready to share the secrets the stars hold for each and every one of us. What cosmic energies are influencing our lives this year? How can we harness the power of the stars to navigate these uncharted celestial waters? Kyle will be our guide through the astrological map of 2024. So buckle up, cosmic companions. I'm Tony Sweet with Truth Be Told. Please welcome to the Truth Be Told studios for the first time, world-renowned astrologer Kyle Thomas. Well, there he is, Kyle, the one and only world-renowned astrologer. How you doing?
Great. I'm so excited to talk with you today. Thank you so much for reaching out, and I can't wait to dive into everything for the year ahead.
I can't either, and this is always a fun time of the year because of the predictions, and you know, a lot of times with psychics, you know, we do get some predictions, but with astrology, it's pretty, you know, kind of a set in stone. Not saying there, you know, things can't be off here and there, but you know, the stars don't lie. And so I wanted to start off by just kind of a icebreaker question of, you know, what sparked your interest in astrology and how you got started in it, because sometimes that's kind of a fun question to ask.
For sure. So I have always been very fascinated about people and the universe and humanity since as early as I could read and learn. And history was one of my favorite topics when I was very young in school, as well as, you know, diving into spirituality, because that has been something that was really important to my family as well. But even though I was raised in a very conservative sort of doctrine,
right,
I still wanted to know more about the universe, and not only like who I am, but like who other people are, and, you know, what makes us find purpose in the journey of life. And so around 8 years old, I would go to the library every weekend. My dad would go running. I would, you know, be on my bike, and he would take me to the library and just sort of drop me off, and he would go on, you know, like a couple hour long run, and I would just dive into different kinds of books, and mythology really excited me. I loved the idea of gods and goddesses and the pantheon and all of that. And the more that I was researching ancient history and mythology, I realized that there was a great component of astrology that was involved in that. And so because of that, it just became more apparent and a bigger interest of mine around, like I said, 8 years old. And ever since then, I've just been diving more. I've read thousands of books. I just have immersed myself in this content for so long, and it's just been so exciting to really see that transform into a career, but not only just a career in being an astrologer, but doing it in the media, which
right.
has been something that I feel very grateful for.
Of course. And a lot of the astrologers I've talked to, they always had, well, not all people, but like some type of intuition, psychic ability. So do you also consider yourself an intuitive?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. 100%. And I mean, I've had a lot of very beautiful and I feel like remarkable spiritual or esoteric experiences in my life. I feel very connected to angelic energy. I was raised Catholic, and so that was always something that was very prominent, obviously, within that sort of religious ideology. But, you know, I feel like we all have psychic ability. We all have intuition. We have an ability to connect with not only other people, but to the world in which we live, and that's pets and nature and the weather and all of that. We have these intrinsic skills. And because of that, I think the more that you actually utilize them and grow them, the more that you're going to be able to access them and harness them for your life. And that can be said for any ability, whether that's a skill like painting or writing or singing or any of these kinds of things. The more that we engage with it and cultivate it, the more we're going to receive.
I love that. I love that. And I've interviewed some amazing astrologists and numerologists, since I've started this show. And in numerology, definitely you have to be good with numbers, and you have to, kind of do your research. And I've even had my astrological chart done. So for people out there that are interested in maybe moving into the direction of becoming an astrologer, where do they start? Where do you start to hone your skills?
Well, I mean, I think that with the explosion of interest around astrology at this point in time, because of obviously, the internet makes things so much more accessible to people, I think it's really exciting to dive into it first as a hobby. I wouldn't particularly suggest like just diving in and being like, I'm going to be an astrologer. You need to really understand that it is more than just, stepping into a career path and reading two books and watching TikTok, because there are a lot of people out there at this point in time that I do think they have a fascination and an eagerness to love astrology, but a lot of the content out there, especially online and on social media, is not accurate and is not based in the thousands of years of tradition of astrology. Now, I don't want to, put people down and say that you shouldn't pursue your passions and dreams. I always encourage people to do that, but it is a lot of hard work. I mean, certainly, yes. I mean, working with mentors, or there are certifications out there that you can get. But again, it's not even just about having that. You really have to dedicate yourself to the craft of it. And with astrology, it's not a religion. It's not a spirituality. It's not a belief system. I agree, or I think that it's an art form. And I think that each astrologer, like an artist, can have their own particular techniques. But again, you need to hone them. And I really think that there needs to be a consistent effort to consistently improve your craft and learn more. I mean, even though I've read so many books and I've worked with so many people and magazines and, worked with incredible mentors, I still have like constant books that I'm reading because again, I want to fine tune my craft, and I really want to make sure that I'm supplying a service that is going to really empower people at the end of the day. Another thing that I actually really add into my particular work in astrology is a lot of psychological analysis. And I went to school for psychology as well. And so it's the kind of thing that I feel like, because if we look at the personality map, the psychological profiles, it also applies to astrology. But again, that's how it really works for me. It's not like just saying like, oh, I think intuitively this is what your chart means. Like every degree has a meaning, every placement has a meaning, and you have to look at the whole complex map in order to really understand what either is happening in a predictive sense or a productive sense.
And I know a lot of people get confused, and I even do too, and sometimes I have to ask once or twice throughout the year, because there's Chinese astrology, there was the Mayan astrology, is it Vedic?
Yes.
So there's different astrologies, and they're like, okay, what's the difference between each one of these?
Well, even within each of those particular techniques, there's like 100 different techniques or more that you can also cultivate, because it's like, so I practice Western astrology, and that's tied to the seasons. So, and there are people that, say like, oh, well, the Zodiac signs have moved due to the precession of the equinoxes, which is all true. But it's the Western astrology, because it is tied to those four corner points of the seasons. It still is the same, and it actually, it evolves, the understanding of how we mature and go through the seasons and life every single year. So, but even in Western astrology, there are a lot of people that focus on whole sign astrology, which I do not. I look at every single degree, and I don't want to just be too general, because I think that in astrology, when you are working in pop culture and when you are looking at content that is in magazines, they want to reach the widest audience, which I do as well.
Right.
But I have found through my work that whole sign astrology is even too general and not necessarily as accurate as looking at all of the degrees and the transits within each house and placements, etc. So again, I could dive into like all of that.
Right, right. No,
I found like what works for me, and I found what has been the most precise for me and my clients and my publications and TV, etc. And so that's why I really try to continue to, harness that.
Yeah, I remember back in the day when, many of us that remember newspapers, we would look in the newspapers and see, our horoscope for the day or astrologist, predictions. And it was pretty general, basic information. I even work with the Cabal Center, with their podcast. And so getting to know how the Kabbalah do predict through their astrology, it's like, oh wow. I mean, there are differences, but there's a lot of similarities, of course.
Well, one thing that I love about it is that because there are so many esoteric traditions that tie to it or utilize it, we can look at these archetypal energetic forces. And then yes, it certainly has connections to certain spiritual traditions and techniques and yoga and on and on. But that's because I think that as a system, from the traditional, advent of it, it still holds resonance at that particular form.
Right.
And for instance, I don't even particularly love to dive too much into the asteroids. And, there are some people that, live and die on them, and that's great. But I think that the way that astrology was created, because it did embody those quintessential forms, it was perfect as it was already. And we can understand that, of course, I use the modern planets as well. Yes, I'm using Pluto, Uranus, Neptune. Yes, of course. But I still think that the original creation of it was around for thousands of years. And that's why it's like, yes, we can certainly, add more nuances, but a lot of it's repetitive then. It's like looking at your Juno, which ties to your wife or your partner. Like, you already have the seventh house. You already can look at your Venus. You can already, you just see what I'm saying? So it's like,
right.
I feel like adding all of those other layers now isn't a bad thing, and may also be very beneficial for certain people, but I just don't practice that.
Yeah. And I didn't realize that astrology has been around. I was looking it up, and they said clear back to almost 2000 BC that astrology's been in play. And then they said it even considered academic discipline across Eurasia. So I'm like, wow, that, it's been taken very seriously, for thousands of years. And I think, that, where a lot of people poo-poo, that don't have anything to do with anything. And you're like, no, it does have a lot to, when people say your sign is this and these are your traits, and then you're like, yeah, actually that's pretty true.
Well, and with that in mind, so again, I think that there are certain astrologers or people out there that sort of demean or talk down about the sun sign, and the sun sign is typically what is going to be discussed in any sort of mainstream horoscope, general horoscope, and things of that nature, like magazines, etc. And I also do a lot of focus on the sun sign, because the thing about the sun sign is that it is the brightest, the sun is the brightest and most powerful force in our solar system. We cannot live without the sun. It is tied to our life force. It is tied to our ego. It is tied to that very essence. And actually, the older that we get, we become more aligned with our sun sign, because we become more comfortable with who we are. And again, usually, you're going to have your Venus or your Mercury, because they're the personal planets, close to the sun. So, if there is a significant transit happening in connection to the sun, you're still going to feel it. But of course, for more specific and clear predictions, you're going to want to look at the full chart.
Right,
so
right.
That's just one thing I like to say and explain to people.
No, I'm glad you do, because a lot of people, even though they've, many of that watch Truth Be Told, my show, that they may understand it more, but somebody that's tuning in that they're like, I have no idea what they're talking about. And by the way, this is Kyle Thomas, world-renowned astrologer, and we're going to be doing some predictions for 2024, and I can't believe it's 2024. I remember when 1999 was going to happen. You were probably just a baby, but I'm like, that's 1999. That's so far away. Well, it's come and gone, and now it's 2024. So,
yeah, it's funny. I remember I was reading a book and writing before midnight when we left 1999 to go into 2000, because everyone was like afraid the world was going to end and blah blah blah, and they were thinking about like the Mayan system and all these predictions, etc. And I was super religious at that point in time, so I was also like kind of scared and like, oh my God, what does this mean? Right. And I was with my family. We were all staying up. We were like watching movies and stuff. And I remember like looking down at, I mean, phones weren't even what they are now, but I looked probably at my watch or something, and noticing that transition when I was like, well, it's already midnight in other places of the world. So, it's like I started to
They're
really
still there.
Like, yeah, I was like, we didn't blow up. So, but anyway, it's just a funny little story.
Well, before we get into, before we start doing predictions, I want to get into some signs. But before that, I have a couple fun little questions for you, and
sure,
just to humor us a little bit. So, let's see, I like this one here. If you had to create a playlist for each zodiac sign, and you don't have to go through them all, but what songs would be on your playlist?
Well, I mean, I think what I would do, and I actually have done this before with clients and things of that nature. I mean, I would sort of focus it on some of the basic and, precise, generalized personality traits that they may exhibit. So, we're thinking, Aries. Aries is very, it's ruled by Mars, very assertive, fired up. So we might think of some songs that are very, have a really fast beats, are all about like taking charge and leading the day. And so like, for instance, an example of a song like that for Aries would probably be Unstoppable by Sia. That would be an example of that. Moving forward to, earth signs, we would probably think of songs that are maybe a little bit more, grounded, maybe with some drums, something to kind of move through the body, right. We think of things like that. So, that's the kind of stuff. And I think that, to be honest, I mean, yes, obviously we could break it up into, multiple different signs. But I think even just looking at the elements is probably one of the first ways of really diving into that. Like when we think of water signs, we'd want songs that are very emotional, very, very deep, very moving, so that might be something like maybe we pick some Adele songs.
Oh yeah, can't go wrong there.
The water signs. And then again, going back to with the air signs, again, there's a very intellectual nature, and there's a very a strong sense of needing to be stimulated and being curious about the world. So we might use some music that's a little bit more when I say intellectual, it makes them think, or like different, unique usages of instruments or lyrics, or the way that they use words. Again, you want to stimulate that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I love sort of breaking things down on that. But another way of even doing that sort of idea is something that I've been thinking about with. So I do music as well.
Oh, wow. Are you a singer or player?
No, so I'm actually a lyricist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've done pop music with this really wonderful music producer, Craig J. Snyder.
That's great.
He's worked with some of the biggest acts and performers in the entire world, and we just released our first pop song that's based on astrology.
Congrats.
And it's called Eclipse. And obviously, we talk a little bit about what an eclipse is
Mm-hmm.
and the kinds of cosmic energies that may be evoked by that. But at the end of the day, the song's also about true love and always being tied with people through past lives. So there's a lot of different layers to it. But again, like, that's something that I would like really, think about, like, what is each zodiac sign going through this year? What are the
Right.
kinds of things that they like in life or their relationships or their hobbies? I would integrate all those kinds of ideas into a playlist for them.
I love that. And many people might take that in consideration for 2024 and make a playlist after hearing that segment. So
Yeah,
thanks for
hopefully.
doing it. So, okay, so we don't necessarily have to go through every. I want to just talk about the signs. Why do signs and being born a certain year, certain month, build so much different characteristics? Because you have, like, there's 4 siblings, me, and I have 3 siblings. And every single one, well, I have one sister and a brother that are born in the same month, and then another sister that was born in a different month, and then me. So even though we are in the same family, our characteristics are so different. And so is that the signs, or is that, I don't know. I always wondered, because people say, I can't believe you're related to so-and-so. That's your brother. So, or, something like that. So talk to me about signs. How does that build different characteristics in people?
Well, we have 12 zodiac signs.
Right.
Okay. So from those 12, we can break them down into elements. So we have fire, we have earth, we have air, and we have water. Each of those elemental frequencies vibrate in a different way, and they have a common foundation. Beyond that, you can actually break down the zodiac signs into modalities, which are tied to the season. So there are 3 different modalities. We have cardinal zodiac signs, which initiate a season, which are Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. Then we have fixed signs, which are the full embodiment of a season. So we have Taurus, which is tied to spring, the center of that. We have Leo, which is tied to the center of summer. Then we have Scorpio, which is tied to the center of autumn. And then we have Aquarius, which is tied to the center of winter. The final zodiac sign is of that seasonal progression is the zodiac sign that tries to essentially be the catalyst to move into the next season. So it sort of is more fluid. They tend to be more, I feel more flexible. They're mutable zodiac signs. And so we have Gemini, then we have Virgo, and then we have Sagittarius and Pisces. Okay.
Sagittarius.
Oh, you're Sagittarius. I love Sag. I have a bunch of Sagittarius in my chart. So, but again, we have to look at those kinds of things because those inform them as well. And then, each zodiac sign from the beginning, which is Aries, it's the catalyst of fire. It is the birth, the first breath, and each zodiac sign also ties to a different period of time in life. So from Aries until Pisces, that is the beginning until the end of every human cycle. There's just layers upon layers. Each zodiac sign has a different planet that it's ruled by. Each zodiac sign has different particular symbols that are represented by the archetypes, with like Taurus being the bull and all of these kinds of things. So again, it's like by understanding all of the core aspects of what a zodiac sign embodies, they're always going to build upon other sort of frequencies that are there. Like I said, the things that I've already mentioned here.
Right.
And that's why no one is exactly the same as a zodiac sign. Like the water signs are all a slight different variation of each other. Same with earth, fire, air, etc. So we look at all of those kind of components and we can understand, like I said, the different facets that may be exhibited by that individual. But on top of it, for people that are more interested in the other layers of astrology, we have many different aspects of our personality, and each natal chart is different. No natal chart will ever be the exact same because the planets are always moving, and we have a rising sign, which people may hear about. That's the ascendant. The ascendant, the rising sign, is how people perceive you. So that's one component of why you might find that 2 Sagittarians act very different, because one person could have a Cancer rising and they appear as a Cancer. And then another person could have a Taurus rising and they appear initially as a Taurus. But again, by looking at all of those nuances, yes, you can find out a lot of that by like running a chart on yourself online or looking up an app. But working with an astrologer like myself, you're going to have more insight on all of those itty bitty pieces, and then you can sort of step into a more self-actualized version of yourself.
Oh, I love that.
Does that make sense?
No, it totally makes sense. And you can break these down even deeper. Like you said, if you're saying, oh, I'm Sagittarius, great. Okay, that's more of your basic version. Then you said Sagittarius born on December 7th, which is mine. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay, but then year 1969, so, and then the time, and then so can you, the more you can break it down by very specific, the more you can kind of get into the characteristics. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. But again, it's like we can look at your houses. Each chart has 12 houses, and we can learn about different sort of patterns that are happening, or when things are likely to happen to someone at one period in time. And again, looking at the natal chart, we can understand a lot of how someone may reach the greatest level of self-actualization. Okay, so we can make lifelong predictions. Now, I don't particularly like to do that beyond looking at just the personality profile,
right?
Because I'm the kind of person and astrologer that likes to believe that I am co-creating with the universe. That's what I teach people. That's how I utilize astrology. Whereas there are certain astrologers out there that are very fatalistic and all about fate and destiny. And they're like, no, this is like, you'll never be successful because of this placement here, or you're going to get married and divorced 5 times, or at this age, et cetera, those kinds of things. Again, I feel like that takes away your volition, your power, your strength to create your life and really become who you want to be. But you still have to work in the framework. Like, I'm an Aries rising.
Right.
I will always be an Aries rising. But by understanding those strengths, challenges, and areas of opportunity, I can work with that energy in order to, again, get whatever I want, whether that's love, success, money, personal growth, etc. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know do you know Glennis McCants, the numerologist?
No, so numerology is not something that I particularly dive into much. I certainly believe in it. I just recently did a small project with astrology.com about their numerology report. So
great.
Again, I think that there's one of my favorite things about astrology and numerology and tarot and the paranormal and the esoteric and everything, that sort of lives in this realm, is that at the end of the day, they are lenses that we can understand more about reality and life and ourselves. And I think that if numerology resonates with people and, they are really diving into that and that sings to them, embrace it.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. But the same thing can be said of any of those traditions or techniques.
Well, what Glennis says a lot of times with relationships, business partners, when to open a business, when to go on a vacation, a lot of times she'll do a numerological chart. What about the same thing with astrology? Do you personally, or have people given, or have you given advice to people on people they are dating or possibly marrying or opening a business in a certain time of year? How can that help people going forward, is saying, I want to open a business? Okay, when are you wanting to open that business? May, maybe not the best month. Is that something that is something to look into?
Yes. So I sort of alluded to this a little bit before when we were talking a little bit earlier, is that my particular use of astrology is, yes, it's predictive. We can make predictions about when certain energetic frequencies are going to be happening in one person's life. So for instance, I can say like, oh, this is when you're likely to see more opportunities around love, or start a relationship, or commit, or break up, or find money, or et cetera, those kinds of things.
Right.
So by looking at one's chart and understanding where that is, the next area of astrology is the productive aspect, the strategy, the planning aspect, which is what you were just alluding to
Right.
here. So again, there are many different ways of doing that. So in mundane astrology, which is the movements of the planets every single day, minute, year, we can look at mundane astrology and look at those transits. Like, so for instance, when I'm making predictions for the 2024 year, we're going to be talking about these big patterns that when the planets are moving there. Now, we are collectively going to experience that energy, but by knowing what it's doing and what it's releasing, you can harness more of that abundance. But when, like, let's say I'm working with a client, a celebrity, a politician, whatever it be, we look at the kinds of things that they want to do. So, like, for instance, I work with a lot of musicians.
Right.
And so they'll be like, we want to release this particular new album in the second quarter of the year. And I'd be like, okay, well, we need to think about not only when that's going to take place and like really good days, not only on just the general mundane energy, but also in your chart so that they're working in tandem. But then you also have to think about release, promotion, discussing tours, releasing a single. Like, you really do get into the nitty-gritty of what that looks like. And again, we can look at where the stars are at any time, but we also want to make sure that the maximum benefit is also happening in their chart too. So yeah, I mean, and because astrology ultimately is the research and the understanding of the movement of energy. And so if planets are going to be in a really positive conversation, we can work through that. For instance, there's solar charts. You can look at your birthday. You can do progressions, which talk about where the movements of the planets are through time. You can look at the mundane astrology. I mean, there's just so many different techniques that you can use. But because I've studied so many of them, I know how to apply them to each individual client depending on what they're asking for.
Yeah, no, and that's great because, like you said, a lot of people may not be able to break that down for their clients. So that's great.
Well, I also think a part of it too is that when you do specialize more in what works for you, you're gonna lean into that. And so again, going to when people come to me, like, yes, I'm happy to talk about lifelong predictions and their chart and break down aspects and do that. I can do that. It's not my favorite. I would rather talk about, okay, in the year ahead, you are going to see lots of activity in your personal life here. So this is how you build it. So, like, let's say they're single. I'd be like, well, this is when you're going to want to download an app or go to a networking event or ask someone out. Or if they're in a relationship, I'm like, you should take a trip with your lover at this time. You can fall more in love. It's again, looking at your life and then being more in control of how things are going to proceed.
Perfect. Well, I think it's time that we do a little fun predictions. But before we do that, I have another fun question that it's called Zodiac Travel Adventure. So if you could take a road trip with people of 3 different Zodiac signs, who would they be? And you don't have to say, maybe you can pick the signs. And where would you go?
So 3 Zodiac signs that I would like to go with. I mean, first, I will put this out there. I love every Zodiac sign. I really do. I will not
political
date every Zodiac sign anymore. I have dated every Zodiac sign, and I have friends of every Zodiac sign, but I have found that certain ones do sort of vibe better for me.
Right.
I feel like the first sort of energy that I would take is Gemini. I have a lot of Gemini and Sagittarius in my chart, so I love Geminis. They're so fun. Sometimes they get a bad rep, but I don't particularly agree with just stereotypes of Zodiac signs. I mean, there are certain things that are true, but there's also something about that of being, we are more than just a sliver of one action or situation. So I'd probably pick a Gemini. I also love Leo energy. I'm a Taurus, but most of my chart's in fire.
Oh, okay.
So I really vibe with people that are of a fire nature. or air nature. It just, there's fun, there's spontaneity, we can go and make things happen. I love all that.
Right.
So Leos are just, they're they're fabulous. They're fun, they're courageous, they're passionate. So I probably would pick a Leo. And then I mean, I probably would say like maybe a Cancer or a Pisces, because I feel like if I were to be traveling with a Cancer, they'd already be like, okay, we're gonna make sure that we've got food good like packed, and I'm a
Cancers are like
Taurus, so
that,
I'm a big
yes.
planner too, so I do like that. But I also feel like there's a nurturing energy with a Cancer. But if it wasn't a Cancer, I'd say a Pisces, because they're also very, typically very whimsical and curious and, spontaneous and sensitive, and I feel like, that would vibe. But to be honest, I could probably travel with any zodiac sign, because I just love connecting with people no matter what their chart is. But where would we go?
Yeah, where would you go? That's
I
the
feel
big
like
one.
I've never. So this is one of the things that's like sort of a bummer about my life so far, and I love my life. I have not traveled too much. I actually went for the first time out of, well, besides Canada, out of the nation to
Wow.
Mexico last year. And travel is something that I really do crave and really want.
Yeah.
But I also I would want to go with someone. So, I mean, I would love to eventually, I just want to travel and go to like all of the most sacred, holy,
Oh, that's great.
ancient
Yeah.
spots of the world. Like I would love one day when I get married, hopefully sooner rather than later. I want to do that with someone, and I want to, so whether it's like ancient temples or
Oh, that'll
it's,
be nice. Yeah.
or just like a really high energy space like Machu Picchu or something. Like I just feel like finding someone, no matter what their zodiac sign is, that would love those kinds of experiences, I think would make me really happy.
Yeah, because there's nothing like saying, I want to go to Machu Picchu, and they're like, yeah.
Yeah.
You're like,
I mean, I love culture, and I love food, and I love wine, and I love sights and, nature. But I do think at the end of the day, like that would be like a really bucket list item to be like, oh, we're going to go to the pyramids, and we're going to go to like some super secret spots.
That would be cool.
And then
yeah,
we're
that
going to
would
go
be
to
cool.
Greece, and we're going to go to Italy. And I just feel like going to those places and sort of just feeling that energy. Like I
Yeah.
went to the Temple of the Sun and the Temple
Oh,
of the
yeah, down in
Moon
Mexico. Yeah.
in Mexico last year, and you can feel the energy,
Oh,
and
for
it's sort
sure.
of just fascinating to like stand up on, these formations and buildings that, and just sort of imagine the thousands, the millions of people that have not only been there, but back in the day when those
Well,
those
actually
temples
lived there.
were being utilized.
Yeah.
So I remember just standing there, and I was just like overwhelmed. I was like, wow,
Yeah.
So again, those are just things that I love.
I love it too. I love any ancient sites. That's one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah.
Okay, and I know this is a busy time of the year for you for predictions. And for the people just tuning in, we have the world-renowned astrologer Kyle Thomas talking about, what astrology is, how it affects our everyday life, and now we're going to talk a little 2024 predictions. And so, where do you start? Where would you like to start on some predictions? I mean, we can go political, we can go environmental, we can go pretty much any direction you want to go. But I think everything is very significant right now when it comes to 2024, because there's a lot of pivotal directions we can go that can change, directions of not only the nation but the world. So yeah, a lot of us are curious on what's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, first off, I think we should talk about some of the transits and key placements of what energetically is happening. And I do want to mention that a lot of the stories and situations and energetic cosmic events
Right.
and personal and societal and political events that really began to happen in 2023 are going to echo out into 2024. So we are going to see very similar patterns.
Right.
Now, I do think that, we can always see positives and we can see challenges that may take place. And again, I think by being aware of them, we have a better ability to cultivate more control and
Right.
more opportunity and more happiness and fulfillment. So let's first talk about some of the outer planets and what they've been doing. So my favorite planet to talk about is Jupiter. I have a very strong Jupiter in my chart, so Jupiter energy really radiates for me. And Jupiter is the planet of luck, fortune, expansion, growth, and it takes 12 years to go around the sun. So starting last May of 2023, it entered into the zodiac sign of Taurus. So all of the Tauran themes are being accentuated in our lives and on a collective level. Jupiter is going to stay in Taurus until May 25th of 2024. Okay, so on a general collective level, we can know that there's going to be a big focus around finances, the economy, business, personal pleasure, worth, self-worth, all, banking, real estate, all of these kinds of things, because Taurus rules these industries or parts of the world. However, the thing that is also being very activated around this energetic frequency and zodiac sign is that Uranus, the planet of chaos and change and evolution in the future, has also been in Taurus since 2018 and will remain here on and off a little bit until about 2026. Okay, so that's why even if we've been thinking like, oh, everything is going to flourish and prosper around these, Uranus has been shaking things up and causing us to evolve as a collective, because Uranus takes 84 years to go around the sun. So that's why things aren't like snap, just all perfect and great. We also were having eclipses in Taurus and in Scorpio since 2021. Those are complete now as of the end of 2023. So we won't be dealing with that again until the 2030s. But again, that's why even though we would normally think that the ideas and rulerships and themes of Taurus would be all fabulous and wonderful now, they have been forcing us to evolve. Okay, again, this is going to become especially important and intense for the world, especially around April 20th, which is when Jupiter and Uranus are going to conjunct. A conjunction is when two planets or energies are in the exact same place at the same time, and they synergize and they get very, woven in together until the next conjunction of those two planets takes place. Now, this does foretell a very highly rocky period around all Tauran themes in April, May. I mean, I think it's going to be, to be honest, pretty much the entire spring. And what, on one hand, I do think that there are going to be a lot of people that are going to strike and win big around finances, around real estate, around business, just total big breakthroughs, total, opportunities, windfalls, destined events, lots of exciting change. But then I also think that because of this, it's going to really rock the economy and personal finances, and there are going to be a lot of people that essentially lose very tremendously too. And the reason I say this is because Uranus is the planet of the unknown. Okay. And so with it being the unknown, you can never, no matter how talented or experienced you are to make predictions in astrology, it always brings the unexpected. So that's why I would encourage people not to make big impulsive decisions around finances or pretty much around anything in April if they are afraid of losing. Okay, so on one hand, if you have the extra money and want to make investments or things of that nature, you could do that in a way that, as long as you're not afraid of losing it,
right,
you could strike and win big. So that's just something that I want to put out there. But I'm excited for it. It's going to happen in my zodiac sign. So I think that there's going to be some things that have been building since 2018 for me that finally come to fruition. And anyone with strong Taurus placements will look into that. If you are looking at any of my predictions on my website, Kyle Thomas Astrology is my website, so you can go to horoscopes. I would look to your sun sign, certainly, and certainly if you know what house it's falling in, and see what is being activated. So, for instance, from a sun sign of Scorpio, that would activate big breakthroughs and transitions and changes in relationships. Or for Aries, it'd be around money specifically. Or, for Virgos, it would be about personal and professional growth and perhaps travel or academics or publishing or spirituality. Again, we would want to look at where it is going to be activated for you at that point in time, because it is going to be pretty significant. And like I said, for each zodiac sign, it is sort of what you've been building towards since 2018. Okay. Moving on, Jupiter is going to go into Gemini at the end of May and is going to stay there until June of 2025. So a new trend is going to take place, and this is where we're going to see expansion, fortune, luck around the themes of Gemini. Now, Gemini rules many different things, and the first thing that we can think of is the intellect. Communication, advertising, writing, speaking, social media, podcasting, all of these kinds of things. These are going to be activated for the collective at this point in time. So we can also see that there is a basis around technology to a degree, particularly communicative technology. So, I think that we're going to see a lot of growth around social media platforms. There's going to be a lot of new apps that are coming out. There's going to be a stimulation around all of the industries that Gemini rules. So certainly travel industries, anything to do with communication, like I said, social media, business to a degree, but like I said, it would have to be tied to those kinds of industries, learning, speaking, writing, all this kind of stuff. So collectively, we will notice that. In our personal lives, we will also notice it. What else do I want to say about this? I mean, I feel like this is going to be an interesting sort of vibration for us, because unfortunately, Jupiter in Gemini isn't at its highest potential, and that's because it's across the sky from a zodiac sign that Jupiter rules. And so Jupiter is a little weakened, so we may not get as many benefits or particular growth as much as we want. We're going to have to work a little bit harder around these themes, but Jupiter doesn't typically bring like dark or bad energy, so we just may have to push it up a little bit uphill as compared to when Jupiter was in Taurus, which is a blessed placement for
right.
it. So there's that. Moving forward into other planetary placements that we're experiencing. So Saturn is the planet of challenge, hard work, perseverance, and sometimes hardship. Okay. So with it being tied to karma to a degree, Saturn takes roughly about 28-ish years to go around the sun. So it usually stays in a zodiac sign for about 3 years. And it began to enter into Pisces in March of 2023, and it will be here on and off until February of 2026. Okay. So the first and second year that Saturn is in a zodiac sign, we tend to experience lots of tough love, frustrations. It just feels like an uphill battle around the themes of what that zodiac sign rules. So Pisces rules spirituality, health, mental health, psychology, privacy, the unconscious, solitude, but also places of solitude. So like jails, institutions like, mental health institutions, to a degree, medical institutions, churches, all this sorts of stuff. So we are going to be forced to not only look at our lives about how we may interact with these kinds of things, but it is going to feel like, oh, wow, there are challenges that are being woven out. Also, Pisces rules the oceans. There's a deep tie to water, the ecosystems of the marine. So again, we're seeing karmic situations that have been happening over the last 30 years. The good thing about this is that in 2025 and into the beginning of 2026, if we've done the hard work, we're going to level up. Okay. So we do know that that's going to take place too. The other thing I want to mention here is that the nodes, which are tied to the lunar nodes and movements of the lunar nodes, they are currently in Aries and in Libra. Okay, so the North Node already shows us what collectively, karmically, we are stepping into and bringing into our lives. And then the South Node represents what we are leaving and what is passing along and what we are sort of releasing. It's the excretion of the dragon. And with the energy being in Aries and Libra, there's a lot of energy between independence and relationships. So there are a lot of relationships that are going to break in 2024. But the key to knowing if they are going to break, regardless of your zodiac sign, is if we are feeling unfulfilled in them. Because with the North Node in Aries, it's all about the ego, me, standing in my power, being independent, being an authority figure, taking control of my life, and really manifesting that destiny. So if there are relationships of a romantic, platonic, business, etc. nature, and they aren't really improving our path and also making us feel valued and feel like we really are pursuing what makes us happiest, those relationships are gone. Like that, they're going to be like or at the very least, they're going to experience a lot of very significant challenges. Wow. So there is that. One thing I do want to mention though is that because of the South Node being in Libra, there are a lot of opportunities around past life connections being brought into our awareness during this period in time. Okay, so that again, partnership with Libra has to do with significant one-on-one unions. More often than not, it's of a love, significance, romantic connection, or it would be around business.
Right. Okay.
And when I say that, that could be an agent, a manager, an accountant, a lot of that kind of stuff, even to a degree, an assistant. So we may feel like we have an awakening, an opportunity to reconnect with these other people. So there is that. We all will be fired up around our passions and ideas, for good or for worse. So if people are just going to be very ego-driven. They are not going to care about as much the opinion of other people. But I also want to bring to attention that this is the axis of war and peace. So this is going to be very, very strong energy for us. So in our personal lives, we will be in a sense of war and peace. But then we will also feel that on a collective level, societal level, that will be a big sort of thing to pay attention to. And the nodes take 19 years to repeat a pattern. So if you look back to 19 years ago, you're going to see similar patterns that are taking place now.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Okay.
The eclipses that are taking place are always tied to the nodes. And so we had an eclipse hold on, let me bring up the exact dates. There's an eclipse in Libra on, I think it's like March 25th. Yes. That was right. March 25th. That's a lunar eclipse in Libra. So there will be a lot of attention around partnerships at that point in time. The Great American Eclipse is going to take place on April 8th. That is in Aries. It's a solar eclipse, so lots of new beginnings. Expect March and April to be very intense, a little bit chaotic, lots of beginnings, endings, shifts, twists of fate, karmic situations, destined events, lots of that taking place. Because eclipse season always takes place 1 month prior to 1 month after the eclipses. Okay. Right. So we will experience that. We will have a lunar eclipse in Libra that is taking place on September 18th. Okay. And so, obviously the nodes are always moving. We will experience more eclipses in Pisces and in Virgo in 2025. Because by the beginning of 2025, the nodes have moved out of Aries and Libra, but that also shows that there's going to be a lot of focus around the Piscean themes, spirituality, health, mental health, all of that kind of those thematics. And then we will also have a solar eclipse representing new beginnings in Libra on October 2nd. Okay, so those are the eclipse seasons this year. Let's see here. Predominantly, when we are talking about let's talk about Pluto for a second. So Pluto takes a very, very long time to move around the sun.
Yeah.
Okay. And so watching these cycles are very important because they take place over longer periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, Pluto is the planet of intensity, domination, power, transformation to a degree, but usually through painful transformation.
Right.
Power is always very important to Pluto themes. So, whether that's power struggles, taking power, choosing authority, revolutionizing our lives. But it also is kind of tied to the image of a phoenix. So we have to burn down what is not working for us in order to rise from those ashes.
Yeah.
And so since 2008, Pluto has been predominantly in Capricorn. Okay. Last year in 2023, we did get a couple months with Pluto in Aquarius. Okay. It started in March and it echoed for a couple months, and then it went back into Capricorn.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
We are going to have, starting on January 20th, Pluto is going to go back into Aquarius. It's going to stay there until September. Then it'll briefly move to Capricorn until November 19th, and then it'll go back into Aquarius for roughly 2 decades. All right. So the themes that Aquarius rules are up for revision on a collective scale. And we started to notice this last year. And so when we think of the Aquarian themes, we think about social justice. We think about community organization.
Right.
On a personal level, that's friendships and connections and alliances. It also can represent clubs, volunteering, any group activities, group connections, and how we organize. But Aquarius also rules space travel, anything to do with space. Also, which ETs also are connected to Aquarian energy.
Bring it.
Yeah. And then we also see technology, particularly new technology like AI. So artificial intelligence will be very big. And certainly, really groundbreaking technological advancements. Now, here's the thing. The beginning of any transit, particularly of an outer planet that has malefic nature to it, so Pluto, Saturn, the beginning of that transit is really bad. Is not good. Yeah. So we, on a collective level, are going to be experiencing, this is a time when we need to be very careful of dictators. I'm not making that up. It is very true. We need to be afraid of catalyzing world wars because of this. Like, these kinds of energies can be very destructive, obviously.
Right.
Now, I'm not predicting a world war. I'm also not predicting that there will be a dictator that rises up. But looking back in the past, this has happened repeatedly. Okay? So we do need to be aware. So we work on the highest vibrations of these things so that we can make sure that humanity is evolving and not being destructive. Now, there's so many benefits to the opportunity of this. But again, we need to work as a team. We need to tap into the positive energy of Aquarius, connecting, working, organizing, that kind of stuff. The other thing that I do want to say is that we do need to be extremely careful of AI. And I've been warning about this for a very long time. It's going to get way worse before it gets better. And there is great possibility that there's going to be turmoil around job displacement.
We see that now.
Oh yeah, I mean it's not going to be our favorite thing. Yeah. I mean we have to evolve. That's just part of what's going to happen. But I think that on a positive end, there's beautiful and wonderful ways to utilize it, especially robotics and medical advancements, and really using technology to improve our lives. But if we are not careful, it really could be not positive as an experience.
Yeah.
Now, do I expect that all of this is going to explode, particularly this year? No, I think we're just going to see more advancements of that. We're going to see that there's going to be more conversations, and hopefully there are restrictions in a way that are going to be beneficial to everyone that's involved with it. But ways for it certainly to grow. I think that when we have we had the great conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter at the end of 2020, and that was sort of the ushering in of the age of Aquarius. People were saying that this was here for like decades ago, and I'm like, no, technically not. The age of Aquarius is now. It is happening with that particular that Then we had the conjunction of Pluto and Jupiter. Now we have Pluto going into Aquarius. So now it's really, really activating all of this energy. So, just things for us to be aware of. Then the last thing I think I'll just talk about on a collective sense is the retrogrades of 2024. Now, we do not have a Venus retrograde. We will have a Venus retrograde take place in 2025. So I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point in time, towards either the end of the year or into 2025. We have 3 Mercury retrogrades this year. Luckily, on our end, we just finished one in January, so that's done.
Right.
January will be a little bit slow, but things should pick up by the middle of the month. Then we have Mercury retrograde in Aries, which is going to take place in April. I believe it's the 1st until the 25th of April. So that will be a little bit slow. Then we have another one that is it's August. Let me see here. August 5th until the 28th. And that predominantly happens in Leo. It starts in Virgo, but it predominantly happens in Leo. And then we have one at the end of the year as well. I mean, December is just going to be like super slow. Super, super slow. Where is it? Yeah, Mercury retrograde starts on November 25th in Sagittarius, and it will remain in Sagittarius
Through my birthday.
Yeah, for the whole time until December 15th. So
Wow.
there is that, but we do have a Mars retrograde this year. And, even though it will feel very far away from here we are for people, especially people that are listening to this now. The good thing about this episode is that it can be used at any time for the year for people to reflect on, because we are talking about like full year transits. But Mars retrograde does tend to be a little bit challenging because Mars rules energy, passion, sex, drive, conflict, war. We have to review a lot of these kinds of things. And Mars retrograde starts officially on December 6th.
Wow.
Okay. It will start in Leo, and then it's going to go back into Cancer. So all the themes that Leo and Cancer rule are going to feel extra friction around that period in time. So love, fertility, creativity, the Leo themes, passions, hobbies, that's that. But then in Cancer, it's about family, home, domesticity, real estate, emotions. People be very fired up. But in truth, we're going to start to feel the energies start to slow down in October.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So even though we won't be feeling like it's not as prominent, the pre-shadow of it will take place in October. So yeah, that's what we've got for all of our
That's
yearly
great.
predictions. I know I've just been sort of like rambling it on.
No, it's
but yeah.
great.
So that's the big stuff that all zodiac signs will be affected by.
And the good thing about, like you said, people can go back and listen to this throughout the year and kind of, keep informed so they can prepare.
Yeah. Well, and one thing I would encourage is that for people to check out my website and my Instagram, because I do post a ton of predictions. I talk about the best days. I talk about each transit, significant transits, how they're individually affected, but certainly read my horoscopes on my website. They are very in-depth. I put a lot of time and love and energy into writing them. And I have predictions for the whole world, that are even more in-depth when it comes to elections and things like that. And then I also have horoscopes that are by the zodiac sign, so which you can expect, as well as the love predictions and horoscopes for each zodiac sign too.
All right. Well, Kyle, you're the best, and thank you. You're going to have to come back. I'd love to have you come back and maybe mid-year and talk about, what the latter half of the year is going to be. And it'd be great to see where we go and what's going to happen in this year. The good thing about New Year's, good or bad, the excitement of what's to come. So I really appreciate you being here today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Of course. And please go to KyleThomasastrology.com. And your Instagram is?
MrKylethomas, Mr. Kyle Thomas.
Oh, perfect. I like it, mister. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in today for Truth Be Told, another episode. And you can get all of our episodes on our YouTube channel. And please make sure you like, subscribe, share this show, leave a comment or two. And you can also listen to all of our podcasts on iHeart and Apple and pretty much everywhere, almost 1,000 episodes that you can listen to. And make sure you listen to Bonnie Burkert on Truth Be Told Transformation on Wednesday, Robert Hensley, Minuteman Report on Monday at 3, and of course me every Friday right here on Truth Be Told channel. So thank you for always supporting us. And until next time, have a great year, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye. This has been another episode of Truth Be Told. Thank you so much for watching. Recorded live at UBN Go Studios in Burbank, California. Join us on social media. Facebook, Truth Be Told Radio. Instagram, Truth Be Told Paranormal. Go to Truth Be Told Worldwide for more information on upcoming shows.